His desire as a young boy was to be a soldier. That's what his love was. His love was to be a military man. As Father Steve said, he was a good kid, but he wasn't one of these sappy little children, right? So the stories of saints, like they grew up, they would just live this idyllic kind of life, and then they became heroes, is just not true. They all have struggles, and Kolbe had his struggles, and at one point his mother looked at him and said, "Son, what's going to become of you?" And it was that question which provoked him to pray and to ask Our Lady, "What will become of me?" He was 12 years old. And that's where he has this vision that Father mentioned of these two crowns. And so this man, this young man at the age of 12, who has these intense desires to do something great with his life, which he thought meant becoming a soldier, suddenly becomes transformed, and he decides to become a soldier for Jesus. So he sees the red and the white crown. She offers them both. He says, "I will have them both." And so he earns them both by God's grace. He lives a life of chastity, and he lives a life of martyrdom. He lives, it was a great point that Father kept making, he lives a life of martyrdom. When Kolbe died, after he died, when they were interviewing people who knew him, one of the folks who had studied with him said, if you knew this man, then you just weren't surprised by how he died. Because he lived that way. So martyrdom is prepared for by little acts of just daily love. At least in almost all, but perhaps a few exceptional cases. We often think, wow, if I was put to the extreme test, I would hope that I would want to make that choice. How do you know? You know by, do you make that choice now? And goodness knows every one of us has choices now to make, to do little acts of love. How many of us here had 1 Corinthians 13 as our second reading at our wedding? Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is gentle. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-serving. It does not boast. Love is a verb. In fact, in Greek, in that passage, in a way that you can't do in English, every single one of those 13 descriptions is a verb. Love patiences. Love kindnesses. It's just impossible to translate. Kolbe demonstrates what love looks like. What is salvation? Salvation is faith working itself through love. That was the end of the first reading this morning from Galatians. How am I saved? By my faith, which works. What does it do? It loves. Who am I supposed to love especially? My enemy. You have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor, but hate your enemy. I tell you, love your enemy. And again, if you think that's romantic, you've never had an enemy. We're here at the place where a man used to celebrate Mass for years, and soon will be at the place where he dies, who proves to us that it's possible. Kolbe is another testimony of the fact that no matter what it is that is happening to us now or has happened to us in the past, I can love. Today, as we're walking around this place, and then certainly as we continue on our pilgrimage, for those of us who are finding life challenging right now because of whoever it might be, then let's just call upon this intercession of this person, so that we can be reminded what I'm capable of and what you're capable of. And that we might do what by God's grace we alone are able to do as disciples of Jesus, and to put love into action.